I want to share with you today on behalf of horses some truths and distinctions between horse communicator and soul communicator. I am not a horse communicator, although I have worked with many horses over the years. I don't know anything about their behavior, why they do what they do, but I communicate with the soul. So I'm going to call that soul communication. And I know that there are so many well-intentioned, incredibly beautiful people out there that, love their horses and are doing, the absolute best for them. But there's something that can be done and needs to be done even at a higher level. So I'm going to share two short stories with you. The first one, I was brought to work with this beautiful big black horse probably 5 months ago. And I'm choosing to share this now because this industry is growing and growing and growing. And I fear that even the most well-intentioned people are taking on horses and starting equine therapy and things like this, and then something goes on with the horse emotionally or physically, which is emotional usually, and it can't be figured out or understood. So because they can't serve or in their job anymore, they're given away or traded or sold or whatever, and then off they go with another loss and trauma, these horses. And so I want to share these two stories, which the first one is I was brought there because this guy was having aggressive behavior, food guarding it's called, which I learned something every day. And as knowledgeable as she is as a horse communicator, I would say behaviorist, she couldn't figure out what was going on or get this to change. But this story is really violent, so I'm just giving you a heads up. What he shared with me is that the home where he was before was in Mexico, and he was being trained to be a prancing horse, like, that ridiculous thing that is for our entertainment, which it shouldn't be, that shouldn't even exist. They don't owe us that. And he was with his herd, and one of the herd was his actual blood brother, he said. And so in this instance, he was having me look through his own eyes and experience what he experienced, and then experience his fear and terror and his emotions. And he had a horrible trainer, and when the trainer would give the horses only a certain amount of time or tries to do this right, otherwise he'd just start beating them. Horrible. And then the beatings would escalate, and he just ruled with just terror and whips, and just treated them, like animals, and they're not. They're just like us. They're sentient beings, brilliant, same emotionality, everything, just as most sentient beings. And he started hurting them. He was so scared about getting, that they were going to get beat and hurt. And then the worst case scenario, the guy would just take as a punishment or a fear-driven thing, he would slit their carotid artery and let the horse just drop right in front of his herd, his family, and incite terror. And so he, in his frantic state, didn't want that to happen to his family, so he started doing that behavior. Well, then somehow he ended up where he was, and again, long story, and he starts exhibiting this behavior in his tiny herd. I think there were just 2 other horses there, and food guarding and kind of, being aggressive, whatever that is called. And it was changing his relationship with his owner. There was something shifting, and she couldn't figure out what it was. Well, so then I'm sharing this story with her, what he had said, and among many other things, and like what he had been through and why he was doing what he was doing. And she would have no idea, just like so many people out there even when you want to know. Many people don't even think to want to know what horses have been through or what they're carrying, the pain, the heartbreak, being pulled from their mothers or their family. I mean, it's so brutal if you understand how feeling and emotional they are. And most horses, unless they were born in your presence and you still have them, have experienced tons of trauma and separation and heartbreak and grief. He demonstrated some other shame-based things, and I was able to talk him through this because he got embarrassed that he shared all this vulnerable stuff and went and stood against a wall. And as soon as I said it's okay and you're so courageous for sharing what you shared, you shouldn't, there's no shame in it, you're so loved, you're safe, all these things, he turned around and he came back and finished his food, which he had walked away from, which his owner said was absolutely unheard of, that he had never done before. Then another story, another incredibly revered horse trainer in Italy while I was there, who I hung out with and spent time with, this huge herd that he was training to go packing, like up the mountains and stuff. And he's been working with hundreds of horses. And so this new horse that was separated from the other big herd, he took out, and he wanted him to walk over a plastic tarp. And the horse was terrified and didn't want to do it. He kept on and on trying to get the horse to go over the tarp. Well, he had earned the trust of this huge herd over time. And one by one, they all started coming to the fence line because this horse was separated from them until he could acclimate. One by one, they came and they were watching him do this. And the horse that he was doing this with, trying to train, was shrinking in humiliation because he was doing it right in front of everyone. And so what happened with the rest of the herd is some of them were jerks and they thought it was funny, haha, just like people, watching other things suffer or shame or isn't entertaining. But he lost the trust of like half of that herd because they were pissed that he was shaming that horse, and that horse was just like, he wanted to just like run and hide. And I share these things because here's two really knowledgeable, well-intentioned people, and this is like out of probably millions of people. We need to understand that if you're going to have them, first, get them what they need. And if you're a behaviorist, if that's your communication, it's important to understand that, just as this horse also told me, that the black horse also told me that when horses are put in the position to be in service, like to help people heal, for instance, as therapy horses, their horses are clairvoyant. So they'll be presented with the person just like me, basically, and using clairvoyance, they can see what is within the emotionality and the woundedness and the vibration and where people are stuck. They see it all. And so they end up mirroring for the person what they need and form that like trust, like, oh, we're the same, we're kindred and things. And I hope this isn't a bummer, but this is what he told me. And so there's this, he showed himself here, there's this buffer, and then the person they're serving, and they're projecting this onto the person to create that bond. But he said, but we never end up feeling seen ourselves. So here we are holding all this trauma, but nobody's seeing us. And we're put in front of people all, over and over to help them heal. And they get to be seen and express, their trauma and their emotions, but the horses never do. So they end up not feeling seen. And he said, wild horses they don't, they like being wild because they don't have to perform for anyone. And even sometimes performing is being brought to, oh, you're going to be a therapy horse. But what if they don't want to be a therapy horse? What if they don't want to take people packing? What if they don't even want to be rode? Do we think to find that out? Do we get their permission, or do we just impose ourselves upon them? So I hope this is informational, and it really truly is on behalf of these beautiful creatures that I adore and love working with, and I love being the voice for them and the ears, the witness to their pain. But we have to understand, before you give them away, trade them, sell them, if you've brought them into your space, they're not doing what you want them to do, it's your duty to get them someone like me. It doesn't have to be me, but someone who's a soul communicator. Lastly, it is vital, vital, vital that we not fake, and this is said with so much compassion, but that we not fake the ability to communicate with a horse, and and then share that, oh, this is what's going on, or this is what they've experienced. Because the most important piece, first of all, that can't feel good to you ultimately, but the horse and God and all the the land, every spirit, including the horse, is witness to an untruth, and you're losing their confidence in you and their trust in you because you're not being honest. And it breaks the bonds, and it hurts them again, because again, they're being used to hype someone's ego or to serve a person's needs, instead of how can we serve this beautiful being? How can we be in service to them above anything else? Because they're the ones without a choice to be where they are, really.